there's some other grants. About, kind of putting folks ice. Whether organization.
Place. Yeah. But my sister-in-law just that's how she. Walking real strong. What happened was they did wait a long while because.
Can I answer it?
It's some. It was a while. It wasn't.
Hi, Mom. How are you?
Hanging it down.
Oh, my God. I don't have my book with me. I was shooting and talking. I tried to catch you, but I was blowing at you, but you didn't know. So I know it has to do with the meetings. So can I answer it next meeting
Yeah,
then? Okay.
unless I figure it out.
Well,
But I got
I'm giving it to Mr. Garrett to answer so that you get the accurate answer. That's why I wanted, so.
yeah, we can do it next time.
Okay,
I
thank
ain't
you.
prepared today.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I mean, but I can give you I can put some information on the bid if you want.
Well, one question is, how long do you have? And I'm seeing it out, but they haven't done 60 something out. So I was just prepared. And then
Yeah.
but DTE guy, I guess he was a supervisor or something. He told me to go pay it first. From him, I understand my shop.
Yeah, I think, what you're trying to do is you need to close out that old, right, okay, probably doesn't transfer back to you. Since you don't want to. So, hey, I'm situation, I'm closing this out. Say I was going to fund. Have him around there and say, okay, so if you're not I shouldn't have left. You don't, somebody else. Charge no problems.
Thank you.
She did, but she don't do this that question now.
Come on. Do you remember the questions I asked last time? But everybody on here. I gotta go down.
She got him.
Which is,
No.
okay, we'll do it next time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You know, I already got everything.
I'll put something.
Yes,
You can remember it if you want.
elephants.
Okay. So I don't know what specific question, but there have been a lot of questions about meters, right? Some people get confused with meters in their homes versus the master, right? And there's money on these things and rent. So what I can tell you right now is, so we've been meeting with Leela and Eagle every week, at least once a week for years. And that's been that's been going on since May. Yeah, so we've been meeting with them. We met with them Friday, we meet them every Friday.
Okay.
Sewer and water, right?
Yeah.
And where we are with them is we have to get their sign off on our water model. So that's how. I do it. Yeah, we have all of the water types in a month.
Okay.
So we had to get them to sign off on that model. And that's what we're working on for 3 months. So once that's done, then we're going to determine what the locations are. The meters are going to be, one of them is at 6. Oh, yeah, because you had asked, and I was just texting to get, we got 2 different updates. The first one that we did in the end of July, and the one that we did last week. So I can get hard copies of that. So you can have but one can give a 6 mile and other problem. Right here at so the 3 locations where that's where they measure the water that we're using. And you go back and start talking about sunrise and why rays have to reflect the water they're not using. So that's kind of, that's what we're. It's still, it's still the one, that is, nothing's happening with that right now. But it's not around, but we need to get actually, whatever, the lines are still, we have to do some things. That's not being moved, that's not being metered, that's not being taken, none of that's right. I have told me heads, the pressure on the outside of the city was low. Years and years of time, you don't want to be there because you have that to go there. So now when we run all these models in here, that we still got no pressure. To answer your question, we're talking about trying to get more filled up because if the maintenance guys carry on, they go down, then we got a little more pressure. So I'm gonna get you some petty work now. All right, when I come back to the door. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You remember what I look like? I've been here, man.
I saw your name tag.
So you knew who I was?
This is, this goes with, this is, no, this is for tonight. This is commercial. This is, you asked about. What passed life.
Oh, you got, yes, we got 4.
That's on the agenda tonight?
Yes.
What,
you didn't know? Oh, how do you not know?
How do I not know?
You know. HEIC, head and head. I don't have.
What's going
I
on?
go back and get it.
How you doing?
No, I'm all
Oh,
right.
you just want to see the agenda? FYI.
So no, this is actually for tonight.
Oh, okay.
This is.
Chapter.
Commercial. The last part.
Oh,
Yeah, so this, yeah.
yeah, but I don't know why they told us that.
So I guess that they will open it. So they have to say it's one thing.
Oh, okay.
And then so that's what the information when you open the bid.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'll be, since they did me like that, I'll be online.
And then you better leave.
Shouldn't be no problem. All you do is open and read numbers.
That's it, that's all.
Mr. Clyburn, do we have all of our guests? Everybody's presented there, or is it just you? Okay, gotcha.
I brought backup today.
Okay. Everybody doing?
Yay.
Not too hot, not too cold. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to call to order the Highland Park in-person and virtual workshop for City Council scheduled for Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Madam Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll for today's meeting?
Councilman Ashafi, Councilwoman Martin, Councilwoman Manica,
Here.
Council Pro Tem Robinson,
Present.
Council President Thomas.
Here, thank you very much. We have a quorum. The meeting shall proceed. We have 2 items for this evening. For the people in the audience who are online, you can go and see the virtual workshop agenda items, and for those who are here in person, you can grab a copy of the agenda items for the workshop. They are the presentation of community change grant applications by the North End Woodward Community Coalition and the proposed new solar energy ordinance provided to us today by Community and Economic Development. So at this point, we turn the floor over to Director Clyburn, who will lead us through our meeting. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good evening, residents, council, deputy clerk. How's everyone doing?
How are you, yourself?
Excellent. Okay, so the new CC, the Community Change Grant. I was contacted a few months ago by new CC. EPA reached out to them because of the work that they do in Highland Park and Hamtramck for this grant. They thought it would be a good fit and they wanted to provide some resources to the city of Highland Park and Hamtramck. So in the beginning, we worked in collaboration. Hamtramck decided to go another way. So the funds can be all earmarked for Highland Park. I did just give you an item from the state infrastructure office supporting the program. And I believe we have Reverend Ross on the line to kind of go through it. Is Reverend Ross on the line?
Just a second, let me check. We have Reverend Joan Ross.
Yeah.
Good evening to the council. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Hi, how are you?
How are you, yourself?
To be back before the council again. We have a great opportunity with this grant from the EPA. It is a $20 million Track 1 grant. As Mr. Clyburn indicated, we have been working on this grant since February. We are coming off of a win from the DOE with a very challenging grant. We were named one of 7 organizations in the country to do some of this work, and we are grateful for that. And also, we've gotten support from the State of Michigan Infrastructure Office for a match for the grant of $1 million. That's already been approved for us. So we think this is a great opportunity to do some stormwater management infrastructure work in Ford Park. We were there this weekend actually taking pictures. We've got precipitation studies that indicate some of the water that fell 72 days ago is still puddled and pooled on the ground, which brings us health challenges along with infrastructure challenges in that area. So I'm going to just open it up. If you have questions for us regarding the grant, we'll be happy to talk about.
Members of City Council, I will graciously turn the floor over to you so that you can dig into this if you have questions. Won't hesitate to be first. How would you, so let's assume the funds are made available to new CC. What would be some of the first steps that you would take once you have been empowered with funds to start action?
So the first phase of this grant will include a hydro study as well. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay. The first phase of the grant, of course, is feasibility studies. We have to do a hydro study. We're proposing doing a full tear out of Ford Park to include stormwater management, which may include bladders under the ground or whatever is most effective. But we would have to do both a water study and a feasibility study with professionals in stormwater management.
Thank you. I have a colleague who is also one of my colleagues from Wayne State, another professor from the Department of Engineering, who is working on these type of studies. I'll say to the people that are in the audience, water management, particularly stormwater management and the charges for it have been a hot button issue for us in the city of Highland Park. This area has a unique topography. We're up on a hill. Many of you will remember driving down Woodward Avenue many years ago, that topography was a little bit more pronounced. Some of the changes in the landscape before you get to East Grand Boulevard, some of the buildings and the way that the city was situated would show the topography where Highland Park sits up on a hill. If that's true, that means all the water from the surrounding areas are pouring down into the city of Highland Park. We certainly know that that may happen above ground, underground, but it's likely to happen above ground as well. So the question for us as a community on how we are assessed by stormwater, this would be beneficial to be able to know more specifically about our geography. So that's a great answer to that question.
So
Go ahead, ma'am,
additional
sorry.
concern might be when more work is done on the Joe Louis Greenway, and I'm sure they're going to do some stormwater management, they're going to cause more runoff that may come into this area. So we're really concerned at what might happen with their work, and there's no work going on at this particular point, especially as it impacts all of those houses that are over there, those families that are there as well.
I know that there is under the contribution and roles, item 6 is project activities and deliverable. Could you talk about item 6I, design, install, manage, and maintain a 10 to 15 community solar trust hub power sites within the new CC area? Could you talk to us about that?
Sure. We've been working with the Department of Energy, as our work from there was to create a community solar trust. And that solar trust begins with the 15 hub sites that we are currently partnering with to provide internet access for both the Highland Park, Hamtramck, and North End. And just to mention, we currently service 83 families in Highland Park with our internet service, as well as we have provided to date 508 seniors in your senior complexes to have access to internet. So the hub sites are how we actually distribute the internet. But as people know, when DTE goes down, their internet goes down. But that's not necessarily so. It doesn't have to be true. If we can shore up those hub sites with solar and make sure that your internet stays up, even if there is a DTE power failure. We have begun work with Prayer Temple of Love. We are working there to try to launch them before September. I don't think it's going to be before September, but that'll be the first site that will take 110% off the grid and provide them with solar stability so that they can operate all of their functions in the building and help us to keep the internet up. Prayer Temple of Love is the main distribution site for us in Highland Park. So it is critical to us that we can keep that internet up, provide services to our seniors, as well as to the residents of Highland Park.
Okay. Ladies, I don't want to hog the floor. I have questions. I'll just keep rolling through them. This is under section B. This is item B under contributions and roles and for the city of Highland Park. So, Mr. Clyburn, item 4 under B1, item 1, 2, 3, 4, renovating Ford Park to build a lasting connection to the Joe Louis Greenway, including water retention, stormwater retention, the walkways linking the Greenway to other parks and upgrades and recreational facilities. Have you had an opportunity to approach the Joe Louis Greenway Partnership? This is separate from the Joe Louis Greenway Project, which is the City of Detroit project. Joe Louis Greenway Partnership is led by Liana Henley. and she is the executive director for that organization. Have you had an opportunity to reach out to her and communicate with her about your plans for this?
Yeah, we talked to her and we talked to the Detroit team about what was going on. So we make sure that what's happening on the Detroit owned land is Detroit. And what we're doing on Highland Park land or with this grant would be just Highland Park and how it could match. So making sure that plans are being seen by all parties.
Okay.
We have also brought in MCA to take a look at everything. So it's not a Johnny come lately, it's early on, so we can go through these planning stages to see to best make this project work.
Okay. And I just still like to do this for people that are at home and for people that are in the room. What's going to happen in the next 2 years by 2026, the Joe Louis Greenway project should be up and running within the city of Highland Park. MCA is working on oversight for its infrastructure changes that you see, which will probably be, I'm looking over at Mr. Garrett, these infrastructure changes will probably continue for the next year and a half as well. And then what we're looking at is potentially having new CC come in, provide some research on water, stormwater management, provide us some retention ponds. Basically, there's a potential for all three of these working entities to come together at the culmination of the Greenway project.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think that's significant too. One of the challenges that the city faces that everything that we do, since we're so small, even if we were to make all these infrastructure changes, is only in 2.9 square miles and it's only us. So the potential to having a large body, our neighbor that surrounds us, the city of Detroit, finishing a project on either side of us, at the same time, infrastructure is being completed as part of the water agreement. And then to have a nonprofit partner in the city helping us becoming more green, more efficient, more conscious of the way that our resources are managed, particularly how we manage stormwater. That puts Highland Park in a really unique position in the next, 14 to 18 months. So this, again, I want to make it clear that when we invite these topics for the workshop, this is to put this into the community's mind so that when the time finally comes, we don't know when in the process of the next few meetings that this will come up, but that we talk about the full scope of it. That's one of the questions that I'm asked quite often by people outside of the meetings when I interact with people in the population. They say that they get information later than they would like to. There are some that will complain that they don't get it at all. That might be a matter of really not paying attention in some cases, but here the information is out. And so you have an opportunity to go back and rewatch this meeting and hear these questions being asked. And also, is there any information online at New CC about their mission, about their goals that's out there that people can just go and find out who they are?
Yes, Reverend Ross, you was given the website, and I know they can also sign up for the newsletter. So they also do a monthly newsletter to talk about all the work. But I'll let Reverend Ross give you the website and that information.
Absolutely. The website is mynewcc, mynewcc.org. And there's all kinds of information. We have a very popular website. We have generally about 30,000 hits per year to that website. It defines our community solar work as well as our internet work, our radio station, and the projects that we're doing as it relates to community land trust. So you can see all kinds of information there about us.
Okay. And I will just scroll up through the website. This is their website that is running live. I would encourage people to go and, do a scroll up if you got time to just go on their landing page, sign up potentially for their newsletter so you can keep up with what's going on. I'm going to try and do this as often as I can. I found out that when we have guests that come and present to us, everybody's familiarity with the internet is not all that great. And there are some people who still don't have access to the internet. But if you can get a hold of a computer in your building, in your senior building, or talk to a neighbor next door, this is something worth spending 10 to 15 minutes on. It's about as valuable as watching a season of Game of Thrones. So I would encourage everybody to do so. My colleagues, do you have questions for Mr. Clyburn and our guests?
So we have to match, correct? Or Highland Park matching, or is it UCC matching?
Reverend Ross.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Could you repeat the question?
She asked about the match.
Okay. The match from the state of Michigan is for $1 million. We are required in the grant or ask in the grant to come up with matching funds, not to the total amount of the grant, but to at least show that there's other involvement and other collaborations. We've already secured the $1 million on the provision, of course, that the grant is awarded to us. They've approved our plans, they've looked at our programming, and they've given us their letter of support for $1 million.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who that was.
That's the state of Michigan infrastructure team.
The letter that I gave you, this letter right here, shows a support of the $1 million for matching funds.
Well, go right ahead, man.
What did you say?
I'm done. I was trying to pronounce the last name, but don't worry about it.
Yes, Madam Pro Tem.
Reading, this partnership shall be identified as New Eastwood Community Solar Trust and Ford Park Bridge. What's Ford Park Bridge?
Reverend Russell, where are you at?
Ford Park is the area that we are actually working on. What we found it called was how we identified it in the grant. If it has another name, we'll be happy to make that change in the grant. But as we have identified it, it's Ford Park Field.
This paper says bridge, and it also says Ford Park Bridge on this one.
Apparently, that's what we pick it up as in some legal description that we have. We do have a professional grant team that's been working on this with us, and that's apparently how they've identified it in some document or something that they have they're submitting with the grant.
As old as that track is, I'm not sure. I'm just going to speculate. That plot of land ran next to a railroad bridge.
Yeah.
I don't know if that, we'd have to have the legal team dig a little deeper and find out why it was designated that way.
I've been like I got all the whole area.
So you don't, what is it called that we have? What's the name that we have?
I think we just have it as parcel. It's just listed in our property inventory as on regrid, it's just the parcels.
Right.
And it says the owner is the city of Highland Park.
The whole area where the high school was, the football field. Yeah, it's one parcel and it's on 15900 Woodward.
Now,
It's actually the high school and the others park.
But it's all one parcel. I was
that's how it's
set
land
up
granted.
now.
That's how it's, but we live in the Stevenson subdivision and that never shows up on my mail too. So when we live in Stevenson, I mean, I'm just making a comparison too, because this building is in the Stevenson sub. But most people don't know that. Probably only the people who live here, whoever looked at the map will know it. So I think it's to Madam Pro Tem's point, I think legal description is important. So if we could get a few minutes with the legal team to see. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. Is this the old high school site?
right. It's the old high school site, but it's further back on the side of the field part of it, not in the front.
So
Like John R. Brush, compare it to that side of it.
It's the Ford Park side.
okay.
Yeah. So not the front, more so the field.
And how much of it?
It would be underground that they would, yeah.
Is there a map or something?
Pardon me?
Is there a map?
Is it a map? I can get one together. Okay.
And the reason why it's called Ford Park probably is because that site was previously under recreation. Remember, there was a swap between recreation and the city? And the city leased the site from recreation from the school district. It was a school district. The school district had the recreation part. And so they leased that site and exchanged property so that they could build that new high school there. And then the city got it back when the state tore down the high school. And so that's why it's probably still being plotted as a park, because that's what it originally was. So the question now is can the city do it? because that would be considered public property.
Right, so it's not a, you know, ownership or taking control of it, it's just doing some underground work in conjunction with the city.
So it's almost like an easement.
The underground part of it?
Yes,
Mhm.
because city owns property,
Right.
city has public right of ways where Detroit Edison has an easement under it. So this is an easement situation where they're gonna go in and put some kind of infrastructure under city property.
Correct. That's what.
So I have to make a note of that.
For anyone who had questions about the physical appearance of the site, I went ahead and put it up on the screen so that you could see the area. And then again, let's go back and look at what this partnership is going to do. It's going to help us with water, potentially help us with water management, the potential for ground mount solar, the ability to monitor. This is a great, big, gigantic, perfect space within the city framework to measure water management, stormwater runoff, all those things that factor into the actual cost of our water. This is, in my opinion, it's all coinciding with meters going in. So this gives you more information about your city.
And this, again, this is the introduction. So, you know, we feel like, you know, we will be talking more, coming back, you know, as we flush it out. But it's time for the introduction before council. So, you know, we can bring you in on the conversation. So we get your input. So we make sure as we working through the project, you're considered like it's supposed to be. So this is just an initial introduction to it.
So the engineers are part of this project?
Yeah, the engineers do know about it, yes.
I heard, they know
Pardon me?
about it. but
Yeah, they've been. Wait for it.
Good evening. Good evening. So I was just reading through the application here. So this is underground detention. Okay, so Council President Thomas was referring to meters, and there's a lot of meter conversations. I don't want to get people confused with meters, and this has nothing to do with water meters.
Okay.
But it would have something to do with sewer meters, because that's where our stormwater runoff goes into our combined sewer system. So if we are minimizing the amount of runoff that comes from anywhere within the city, city-owned property, other properties, the goal would be to minimize the volume that goes into the pipe, which will be metered, and that would affect our bill. So I just wanted to, but as I read through this, a part of the city's responsibilities are to look at this underground system. Now, Kathy was talking about property rights, and there's a whole lot of other things that need to be looked at. But if we're going to design underground retention, then we need to look at that and look at how much volume we can actually remove. Then we probably have to go back and share that with GLWA and say, hey, we're doing these improvements. We anticipate, it's just like a stormwater credit, like residents apply for them. This would be like a city stormwater credit, and we would want that volume removed out of our bill.
Yeah. And that's, I'm glad we're talking about this, because that's a very interesting site.
Mm-hmm.
Because that site, you know, people who are from Highland Park might remember ice skating over there.
Yes.
Well, that's because that is the headwaters of a huge underground ditch, the Wilcox ditch.
Like a tributary underground?
Like a tributary. And if you look at that map, and this is very interesting. And I could go, you know how much I love Highland Park. I can go on forever, but I won't. But right there at 6 Mile, there is a 110-inch sewer main. Because 6 Mile is the old Hamtramck ditch that dumped all the way into Lake St. Clair. And our water plant, the access from the water plant would drain up the Quinder to 6 Mile and get in that ditch and then discharge in the lake. So when they were saying that they were charging us for that, that was never going to the water treatment plant. But long story short, that is a very interesting area of the city, very high water table. That's one of the reasons why the North Point development couldn't put basements in the houses because they kept hitting water. So that one is a very interesting site. And that's gonna take a lot of engineering and feasibility to see really if you can really do what you wanna do over there. Because there is, and remember when we tore down high school, anybody, if you ever went up there, you remember, I wouldn't let them put the dirty fill in there. So we waited until they got clean fill so that we could build on the site without having to dig up all kind of contamination, because there was always concern that it was contamination up there. Long story short, remember how the hole used to fill up? It filled up with water. That water was coming from underneath. And so we finally got it filled, but it's very, very wet over there. In fact, it's almost returned forest. We've had some problems with not mowing it, trying to maintain it, and trying to cut it and everything else. Very, very wet over there. So that's gonna be an interesting, if this flies, it'll be very interesting because it's a river flowing up under.
Absolutely. That is a river. Exactly what the river is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Director Clyburn, under contributions and roles, item B 1 and 3. The next time that we meet, could you give us some idea what, as you have an opportunity to look at the city ordinances and talk to MCA about what may be affected, give us some idea of the type of work that we would need to do on the specific ordinances. We don't necessarily need to know what the amendments might be, but a suggestion as to which ordinances we should take a look at. I think a general recommendation is better than specifics, because all members should begin to make themselves familiar with any ordinance that comes up for discussion. I think it's incumbent upon us, whatever the ordinance is, that ordinance discussion be announced among our peers. And then it's your job to go back and start to read through that ordinance, as opposed to waiting to come to chambers and say that we should deal with this ordinance, this section. If we're going to work on blight, everyone should be familiar with the blight ordinance. If we're going to work on stormwater management, everybody should begin to make themselves familiar with it, so that we don't. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that we show up halfway ready, and you guys can get us all the way ready. And then when it's time to vote, we'll be completely ready.
Not a problem.
That's my goal. So item 1, and then also item 3, the rezoning of properties to transit-oriented development. I'm stunned, but not so much. We just got rezoned. That zoning ordinance came out in 2011. I don't think anybody would have envisioned in 2011 what's happening 10 minutes south of us. Nobody would have been able to picture it. I didn't. I've been here my whole life.
Yeah.
So I think changing, and even I might be reaching, but the idea of, if we're going to change transit-oriented development for this site, we're going to open that box. Would it be possible for us to look at the way that the zoning map is made now, and then potentially re-envision some of the land that we have that is not transit-oriented development, but that should be? Specifically, everything, it's just my opinion. Everything between Woodward and Hamilton, if you want my opinion, should be transit-oriented development. Everything,
Yes.
so because that gives those properties between Woodward and Hamilton the opportunity to, if a train is coming, either on Hamilton or on Woodward Avenue, it gives the people who own property in there an opportunity to make thoughtful investments in their property, increase the value, be prepared for any particular traffic, not increase in population, because it's more than likely if and when Highland Park expands, it's going to expand between Woodward and Hamilton. That's where all the space is. That's where a lot of the vacancies are, with the exception of the north side. But I'm saying more than likely, those two major streets is going to be where you see a lot of expansion. There's room for housing there too. So if you could look at item 1 and item 3 for me under responsibilities for City of Highland Park, I would appreciate it.
Yep. So, and that's what it is, especially with the Greenway, looking at the zoning on how we can best benefit, or best take advantage of what's going on with the Joe Louis Greenway.
Okay, I'm done. Madam Pro Tem, please go ahead.
I'm reading from B3, where it says installing and maintaining a walkway linking the Joe Louis Greenway to New CC Community Resilience Hub and then occasional candidates. Where is that located?
So another hub that they were looking at is Soul Harvest, but in some of the old, when the Greenway was first introduced in the county, we were meeting. They were talking about maybe possibly making a path from McNichols to the greenway of brush, so it'll cross through that area. So New CC is also working with Soul Harvest as a hub.
To create that? Or
Pardon
is
me?
it already there? Is it already there, or are you going to create it?
They're working to create it, similar to what they're doing at Prayer Temple of Love as a hub.
Thank you for reminding me about that, because I remember doing some of the early conversations about the section of Greenway that connects Bangletown to the other side of Highland Park. There was discussion of going completely around the city of Highland Park. But that whatever the body, whatever the group of people that convinced them to go through the city, the discussion of making that connection, I thought was pretty significant. We get a lot of foot traffic. I mean, let's face it, the city of Highland Park gets more, because people don't have cars, we get a lot of foot traffic in our city, on our major streets. On 6 Mile, you see a lot of people walking. You drive up and down 6 Mile, you see a lot of people on foot. Same for Woodward Avenue, same for Hamilton. I see lots of people walking on Puritan when I drive there. So anything that would integrate that greenway space to our normal walking population, I think would be beneficial. I'm sure bikes could go in the same space as well. Be better for the bikes off the road anyway. On that first item, I don't have any additional questions. If other members have additional questions, please feel free to press through those questions. But if no one else has any questions, we can move on to the next item. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for your hands up. So ladies, please go right ahead.
Make sure, could you tell us how much land you're talking about? Are you talking about the whole area, or just coming back to like John R. or back to?
So that'll come with the study.
Can you read and explain, number 3 on the second sheet, the contributions and roles?
For who? Reverend Rush, you want to take a look at that number 3?
I'm sorry,
Contributions and roles?
under contributions and roles,
Yes.
could you tell me which one, number 3, is this subawards? Is that?
It's lead applicant, management oversight, funds management, sub award. 123.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clyburn, I'm having trouble hearing. So if you could read it to me.
Contributions, so on the item 3, contributions and roles, A 1 through 3. So
Okay.
lead applicant, North End Woodward Community Coalition, management and oversight, responsible for overall management, performance, oversight and reporting associated with the grant, including the issuance of subawards to collaborating entities. Number 2, funds management, responsible for receiving federal funds from EPA, ensuring proper expenditure and assuming liability for any unallowable costs. And number 3, subawards, issue a subaward to the city of Highland Park in accordance with the final EPA approved grant budget.
Right.
So Council Pro Tem would like a better explanation.
Okay, so what makes this grant unique and the first time that any of us can remember the government doing, this is called a community change grant. The grants are actually awarded to a community organization, to a community development group, and they become the lead agency responsible for all subawarding as well as all grant accountability in this situation. So usually most grants from the federal government operate the other way around, where the lead agent is actually the city itself. But because of the nature of this grant, the idea is to make a change in community from within community and not coming from the top down. So New CC, by the whole mandate of the grant, is responsible for all funds. The funds are actually given to us and we subaward the funds to the city of Highland Park or to any of the agencies named as collaborative partners. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to follow up on that. So what does the city do?
The city is responsible for putting out their own RFP or the RFP that will talk about the work in Ford Park there, and we would sub-grant the money to them. So there's two committees set up by nature of the grant itself. One is a senior sort of advisory committee, which consists of the city members, the council, or Mr. Clyburn's office. And there's a community advisory group that kind of oversees all of the process. So the city actually puts out the RFP and manages the portion of the grant on that land, Ford Park.
So how does the city fund it?
It's funded through the portion of the grant that has been allocated for that part of the work, which roughly is about $9 to $10 million right now.
So where does the city get the money? Because if the grant would be reimbursed.
No,
We
this is not a reimbursable grant. It's a paid upfront grant, or it's at least paid in portion grant. So no, there's no reimbursement part of this. When we are awarded the grant, we'll get a certain part of it, and we'll send or give to the city at that time the portion to begin the work on Ford Park.
Because this would be something new to the city, and I don't know how we do it, because we have very strict state and federal accounting guidelines and auditing controls, and so I'm gonna need more information, because we generally don't receive money. We don't really wait on money from third parties, so it would be something new for us that the city's never done. And so I guess we're gonna need more information to make sure that we can do it.
I think you're right. Absolutely. I've never known federal government grants to go where community is the lead partner. Usually it is the reverse, where we're waiting for the cities to give us money to do the work. But this time, this is called a community change. So that's why community organizations, CDOs, have been approached to work on this grant in the other way. So I agree. I understand what you're saying, but I think that it's worth pursuing to the next level. Remember, we haven't even submitted the grant. We're in the praying stage. So I think it's worth going to the next level, and we can certainly meet, and the senior advisory team can certainly work out all of those details. How do we get audited? How's the back room managed? All of that.
Would be helpful for us to review beforehand. And that way we can really find out, because again, this would be something totally new for the city.
So we have an EPA technical advisor. We have a whole team of Indina workers that have been working with us on this grant. I believe we can probably submit maybe a ticket request, and you can, in the earlier meetings, we've had Mr. Clyburn in the meetings with our EPA technical advisors. So we've not kept them a secret. We can certainly put that question before them. I don't know if you're asking about an internal audit situation that you may have to work out just as the city of Highland Park, but as a generic question, how do cities handle this? I think we could probably put that to the Indina team.
Yeah, my concern is specifically how do we book the transactions? How does it flow in our financial statements? What kind of accounting do we do? What kind of budget? How do we report it to the state? All of the financial concerns that the city has to operate under. The project sounds fabulous. I just want to know the nuts and bolts of how we administer. That's the information.
Okay, then with that, and that's probably the most important too, because ins and outs. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and shift over to our second item, so we will still have some time. That's the nuts and bolts. Ms. Grove's talking about how we dispose the funds. So if you guys we can move into the next proposed new solar energy systems ordinance. I saw we have the full team from Solidarity here. Who's going to be presenting? It's going to be.
No, this is not
This
solidarity.
Okay.
This is a continuation from the LEAP. So
Okay.
I have Eric from, who's contractor with MCA, wanna come up to talk about.
I'm sorry, I went left.
So, you know, we've been working on the solar ordinance for many years.
Yes, sir.
And when we got the LEAP grant, that technical money went towards putting this solar ordinance together. It's never come back before
Gotcha.
council. So there's a lot of grants, a lot of opportunities to place some of these solar technologies on city property. So we would need the solar ordinance to move forward.
Okay.
So you just mentioned like, we need to start coming to you with information and the ordinances that we're looking to look at. Looking to adopt or revise. So this is something that we will be looking to adopt. So
Okay, and what I come up here, I want you to clarify something for me too, just to make sure that I understood it the right way. So this is an ordinance that was worked on with, it's been worked on for a while, but it was
Yes.
worked on with our partners, MCA,
Yes,
and the third party, this gentleman.
he's with MCA
Okay,
also.
with MCA. So this, again, so for people in the audience, we've had discussions about ordinances. We had a contractor that works for the city, help us prepare this,
Let me just do
Yeah.
another little recap real quick.
please.
So the LEAP program started back, we started having these discussions under prior administration. This is back in 2021. And the LEAP program stands for Local Energy Action Plan. So Highland Park was awarded a grant to have the Department of Energy look at 4 distinct areas for helping Highland Park at no charge to us. So we applied in late 2021. We are awarded in spring of 2022. And the project lasted up until March of 2023.
Okay,
So the 4 areas, one was the street lighting ordinance, which he has, that we're gonna talk about tonight. They did a grid analysis of our grid, what's happened with our grid in Highland Park, or the sustainability of the grid. Home energy improvements and e-mobility. So those were the 4 areas that the Department of Energy allocated money to study Highland Park and give that information back to the city, which is in this binder. Just based on a lot of things that have been going on, we hadn't been able to get in front and do the formal presentation and talk about this. So now that things are kind of moving in a different direction, we want to start opening up that conversation, getting people familiar with the work that was done on behalf of Highland Park. Highland Park was the only community awarded in Michigan and one of 24 in the nation. So
okay.
that was the recap that needed. And Eric is a project manager. We've been working with us for just about 3 years. He works in our renewable. I know you guys know MCA as water only, but we do other things. He is a project manager in our renewable group, which is battery energy storage, e-mobility, wind farms, solar parks. So that's the area that he works in. So I'm going to let him speak on the renewable stuff and how the LEAP and the solar ordinance applies to the city.
So to
Before
quote,
he speaks on that, everything that you just said, you have the right, can you forward it to?
Whatever you would like, yes.
yeah, and so in the words of Kevin Hart, dang, that's a lot. That was a lot. I'm sitting here just taking it in like, wow, okay. So, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Eric Earlings. Thanks, Damon, for the introduction. I'm going to leverage what we talked about from LEAP. One of the main things that I wanted to tie together, there's 3 projects in the Detroit area that you guys may have heard of, where there's new energy infrastructure being built. The community center at AB Ford Park, formerly Lennox Recreation Center. Another one at Bailey Park Neighborhood Development Corporation, and Stoudemire Wellness Hub. Those 3 facilities have the ability to store energy on site and to produce energy on site, whether that's a generator running on fuel or whether that's solar power, just taking energy from the sun, turning it into electricity. So there are many places, including Detroit, that have started to do these so-called resilience hubs. And in order for the city or anyone to put solar panels somewhere other than a rooftop, the current ordinance does not say how tall, how close to the property line. Do I need to put trees in front of it so you can't see it? There's none of that. So it's just a vacant part. There's nothing in the ordinance that says, if I want to put this on a parcel as the only thing on the parcel, I own the parcel, I just want to put solar panels down, not on a building, just on the ground. Can I do that? That would be a very special case. Developer would have to come and it would be a special case. But rather than having a special case, an ordinance would say, here's the rules, developers. If you're in this zoning district, you can do this. If you have a residential district, you can do less, that kind of thing. So the good thing that we got from the LEAP was the federal experts that work communities all over the US. They were able to look at the content areas of the draft ordinance for the intent and purpose, definitions, what's called use by right, things like height, lot coverage, setbacks, safety, aesthetics, and if it's the only thing on the site or if it's an accessory, just an additional thing on the site. And so they were able to look at the draft, provide expert recommendations, and what you have before you today has been seen by them and reflects their feedback. So I don't know how much you want to go into the specifics of the solar ordinance, but I know we don't have a ton of time. So I guess I would open it up for questions.
Yeah. So this is, obviously, we're not asking for adoption of this. So this is, we're putting this before the council, like we have several other water. I mean, it needs to come here. We need to work it out, as you were saying earlier, talk it out the questions, and then it would come back to council if at some point for formal action and adoption into, to be codified in the ordinance. So this is like, hey, we have a solar ordinance. We have a draft solar ordinance. It's out here. We think it's, with all of this activity that you're hearing about, it's something that we need to discuss. So it's just open for discussion. Maybe you might hit some of the high points, and it just, this might be the first time that they're looking at this or hearing about this. So I would hit some of the high points, and so they have an idea of what's in this.
Can I do something first for the residents? I just want to read this onto the record. This is under major use groups for solar energy systems. This is the intent. The City of Highland Park Solar Energy Systems Ordinance intends to provide a renewable, abundant, local distributed, resilient, and non-polluting energy source, decrease the cost of energy, improve the quality of life for current residents while also protecting the public health, safety, and welfare, to protect property owners' rights to construct solar energy systems in all zoning districts and protect legal permission from landlords to tenants, encourage and support environmental site design through conservation and preservation in place, woodlands, wetlands, cultural resources that should not be disturbed. Increase employment and business development in the region by furthering the installation of solar energy systems. This ordinance does not prohibit the sale of excess power. So you make power, you can sell power through a net billing, net metering, or direct or credit bill or other arrangement in accordance with Michigan's law overseen by Michigan Public Service Commission, MPSC, for any other federal statute. Administration of this solar energy systems ordinance is to be jointly executed by the municipal City of Highland Park departments, who will each have unique responsibilities for specific aspects of implementation. These departments include the Department of Public Works, the Building Department, the Engineering Department, the Community and Economic Development Department, and the Planning Department, as well as the Fire Department. So I don't remember a time when I've lived here that we've addressed ordinances, like ever. And so if it's possible to make this available electronically, so I've been ridiculed recently for calling it residents who can't make it here, I call them the social media government. It's not a slight. It's the people in the community who are beloved of Highland Park, and they have their own governance structure and their own relationships based on their affiliation with the City of Highland Park, but they don't have access to information. And these people are active and they have a thriving community within the social media construct. And I would assume that, I would believe that there will be a significant number of those people who, if they had access to something like this electronically, identify as a draft for them to read through, that you might be able to garner additional feedback. Now, of course, like a ball game, you get heckling, but you'll also get some good advice from people who might be able to look at this and say, you know what, this sounds pretty interesting. And from their perspective, as either a property owner or a business owner or a booster of the City of Highland Park, there are a lot of people from this community that have insight and intellect that might be able to lift up the cause. Because just reading that, to me sound, I mean, again, we haven't worked on an ordinance. This sounds pretty good that we're gonna have a conversation like this about these things. So thank you for that. I guess I can turn it back around. You were gonna pick up on some things. Ms. Manica, Madam Pro Tem, please feel free to dig in if you have questions as we go through, because I know that's important for this body because we're gonna have to vote on something that comes. But I'm gonna turn the floor back over to you, sir.
Very good. Going through a couple of the meanings, definitions, that's the beginning of the ordinance section is covering, we're going to refer to a lot of things in the document. There's a couple of acronyms. Solar Energy Systems, SES is that acronym here. I mentioned I'm going to jump down to roof mounted. Today, if you're a business owner, homeowner, and you would like to put solar panels on your roof, you're free to do that. You have to pass the building code, fire code, electrical code. You may do that, but this is talking about ground mounted or building integrated. So now they have technologies such as solar shingles. So the actual shingle itself is acting in two ways. It's acting to keep water out of your house, but it's also a solar panel itself. So that's sort of a building integrated SES. And then there's dual use, where you can do two things on the same plot of land. You can have plants growing for bee habitat, pollinator habitat, butterfly, conservation cover. You can have agrivoltaics, which is just fancy way of merging two words. Photovoltaics being solar panels and agriculture being just gardening, essentially. So agrivoltaics is saying that you can, in the same property, be growing, successfully growing plants that have some shade during parts of the day because the solar panels are installed above them or kind of staggered throughout your garden. And you can have a lot of benefits. It shades, cools down, keeps things, keeps things more the ground saturated and good for growing. One other one I'll mention, solar thermal system. So the focus of this is primarily for the type of solar panel that is going to produce electricity. There are other types of solar systems which, by running black tubing, piping, you can actually do sort of like a water heater for your house. That also technically does fall under this ordinance. Going into the highlights here, the permitted uses under section 1264.12 solar energy systems. There's a table there. It's a little bit challenging the first time you look at it. But if we look at the bottom row first, I think that's where people want to know that this is not going to be just something that can be put by anyone, anytime, anywhere. If you are planning to put any ground mounted solar of any kind in a residential district, your project has to go and get special land use permission. So that's the full, as if you're doing any type of new building, it gets special treatment at the, what would that be, planning commission. So
every project, basically, anybody that wants to do solar, you got to come in the planning commission.
Residential ground mount.
Okay.
On the ground. Everything else that's on your roof, you can already do now based on other code.
Okay.
But then if you were going to do, so, sorry, I should clarify. That bottom row is principal use. So that's saying I own a vacant lot in Highland Park and I would like to put solar panels on that vacant lot and sell energy back to the grid. And since I'm not using energy, I'm just getting a check from DTE every month. So this is saying that's the only thing that is on that site. It's the principal use. It's the only use. So if you're doing that on a residential lot, you have to get special land use permission. If you're doing accessory use, if you already have a house, the top row of the table in all districts, if you want to do roof mounted, solar shingles, building integrated,
and
or ground mounted.
When you say table, we don't have that binder that you have in front of you.
This binder is the LEAP. There were 5 kind of
We don't have that table.
documents.
I know you keep referring to it, but we don't have it.
Oh, I am referring to the ordinance, yes. Sorry,
Okay.
I printed out a big copy of the ordinance here,
Okay,
just so I could read.
gotcha.
So yeah, it's on page, let's see, it'd probably be page 3 or so,
Yeah, that's fair.
in the middle of the
3 or 4,
page,
yep.
SES unit type.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if you are trying to put solar panels on a site where you already have a home or a business, then as long as you follow the rules in this ordinance, you can be approved just administratively. So it's not going to go to the planning commission. It's just going to be reviewed to see if it meets the requirements.
Okay,
And then we get to the 2 in the middle for non-residential districts. If they are under 1 acre and that's all they have on the site, principal use, then this ordinance, as it is drafted, would say that also would be only administrative. However, if you were going to do more than 1 acre of solar, then you would also, no matter what zoning district, you would have to go through special land use planning commission. So those are the highlights. I will pause. I know we're running out of time. Pause for questions.
ladies, additional questions, Ms. Manica, please feel free.
Is there a limit or a max of what you can do, or how many can be on plot, or is that something we have to look at later? Is it a limit for just yourself, residential, but you can only do so many, or I didn't hear you speak about height or width, and currently anybody can put solar on their property.
On the roof.
On the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, so on the roof, this ordinance would actually set a rule. There's not currently a rule, so maybe if you wanted to put 12-foot tall thing on top of your roof, if it passed code, you could build it. But now we're saying 6 feet above the highest point of the roof to which it is attached is a reasonable size, sort of like commercial buildings that have their AC on the roof. They have those big boxes, and then they have like the screening blocking it. Those are roughly 6 feet tall. So if you wanted to put something on a flat roof, we're saying that's great. Just make sure it's not more than 6 feet from the highest point of the roof. Going on to the height question, I should have covered that. I apologize. We have.
I just want to make sure it's in there, or if
Yes.
it's going to be in there, you don't actually have to go over it.
I don't want to say it wrong, so
We're
yeah.
gonna come back again.
Yes.
I just was
Yes.
making sure that that was in there, height, or how many, or what you could do.
The how many is actually more of a DTE question. There's lots of, because you're sending energy to their grid, they obviously have a review process of their own. So this is just saying the city, from an aesthetics standpoint, 10 feet away from a property line, a certain height. This is only covering it's only checking certain boxes that the city cares about. DTE would have a separate set of requirements that you'd have to meet.
So I don't mean to preempt, but we are right at 6:59. We're going to take 5 minutes before the next meeting. Thank you very much, the attendees who have shared information with us. We would definitely like to follow up with you. If there's more that you can give us digitally or hard copies in our mailbox, we would greatly appreciate it. So at 6:59, I would declare the workshop meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll start at 7:05.
Mr. President, there are 3 items that Mr. Clyburn wanted to have changed on the agenda.
Would you mind caucusing with them? I'm gonna run to that.
Oh, sure.
Because I got the email.
Okay.